Hello and welcome back. So what I did during the break was I quickly went in and covered some of these back pieces of leather that aren't going to be seen for our purposes, and so I just quickly covered them with color. We're not really going to worry about these. Um, but right now what I want to do is I want to go through quickly my process of cleaning up my seams for this model. The nice thing about the UVs for this guy is that these front pieces here aren't cut. Let me actually, so you can see this better. They're not cut. So for me, as a painter, it's easier for me to clean these seams up. For instance, these seams over here, all along this guy here, these are going to have to be projected back onto the model in body paint because of the nature of the cut. But for right now, because I don't need to go into body paint right now, I'm going to go and resolve these seams here so we get a better look on these corners. You can see this is just not resolved for my liking, and let me start that right now. Grab my front image and just quickly select this edge, copy it over. And I'm going to quickly rough it in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this black piece real quick. I'm going to get my magic wand W, select it, delete. That way I have a better place to see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to go in and start blending this a bit better. Nice cleaner edge here. Now I'm going to go into my side view, do the same thing. Grab this edge, copy it, paste this in. Fit this guy in. Again, same thing, delete that out. Now sometimes when I have edges, if I'm going to try to transform something and it's, well, I can grab this here, but sometimes if I'm up close and I want to get in here and I can't exactly select that, sometimes I go and hit F, and so I have it on this area, and then I can actually grab this and maneuver it. Hit F 2 more times and it brings me back in. So I have both edges put together, but they're still not blending the way I like, so I'm going to quickly just kind of artistically go in and just start defining the way these two meet. And this is going to take some noodling just to get the result that you want. What I'm going to do is go in and paint in some of this area. Just get this to blend a bit better. So I'm happier with that. Just gonna blend this out a bit. And let's save this. Just double check. Let's save this out and see how it looks. I think we're having the same issue. For some reason it's not picking up the new map. Later on I'll delete all these old ones. So there we go. So this is an edge I'm happy with. Got some nice detail in there. So in Photoshop we're able to resolve most of this edge. Now what I'm going to do is clean up one of the seams up top with essentially the same method, but through projection. Create a new layer. Let's actually get a bit closer to this. Okay. I'm going to try to be as flush as I can to this edge. Freeze it. And prep it. Save this. Let's hide all these. Open up. Our seams. Let's paint this out. So I like this detail here, so I'm just gonna quickly seam it up here. Just bring some of that in. Just only gonna worry about this edge here. I'll clean that up later. And then just quickly rough this in before I actually add new texture. Just get something I like. And in fact, I'm actually really happy with the way this looks, but I'm going to go back to my reference and see how that edge looks. If I can find it. Did I close it? Oh, there it is. So I'm going to go back up here, check this edge out. Now, this is something I didn't paint out before, this highlight here. But I do like what's going on here with this chipping detail. So I'm going to do a quick paint out so I can get some of this chipping in there. Copy that. Bring it in. Let's fit this in. Delete the black. Let's see how this holds up. Yeah, this is nice. So let's merge some of this in. And just blend it back. I still have some of these highlight details that I want to take out. So I'm going to quickly paint some of these edges. And go on my quick mask. Try to blend this a bit better. Now let's save that. That was the original edge. This is the new one. So all these techniques are essentially the same. It's just sometimes you'll run into issues and you'll have to be kind of creative in how you solve painting out seams, painting color maps, and so on and so forth. And there we go. So let's unfreeze and check this out. So there's a nice clean edge all the way to the top for this clock, which I'm happy with. So essentially you're going to be doing these two techniques all the way around the model until it's completed. And when you finally get it, it's going to look a bit like this. Just going to open up a previous PSD that I worked on. That has, oh, wrong one. That has some of all the completed seamed edges. I'm going to hide these metal pieces. I'll show you those a bit later. But here's my seam layer that I ended up cleaning up everything. And so a couple things I had to kind of shift up. But all in all, it was pretty painless. And in the end, you get this really nice, clean color map. For me, the color maps typically always take the longest. But after I'm done with those, all the other maps are pretty much derivatives of my color maps, and those maps tend to go a lot faster in terms of producing them. So here we go. Nicely seamed up edges all the way around. So I'm very happy with this. And now I'm going to go in, and what I ended up doing earlier was because these pieces all here that are not mapped, these are all the metal bits in the back. And for this lecture, we're not going to see any of these pieces, but I want to quickly go into how I apply some color to them. So what I ended up doing was I projected this this decal from the reference that I received from the scans. And that was pretty much the only thing I wanted to project because it had very specific placement for the decal and the lettering and information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly add this in to body paint, reload. So now I have this decal. So what I'm going to do in order to fill the rest of this metal is, here's a scan that I took from inside the clock. I ended up ripping the clock open and scanning all the pieces just for my own benefit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this entire piece because I really like this piece of metal. There's a lot of interesting color variation and detailing in the metal that I wanna just kind of incorporate. Even though technically, if I were to look at the back of this model, it's not that, you know, I'd probably use a different metal texture, but I just like this one so much and I want to try to use it. So I'm going to copy this and whoops, that's, I'm going to unlock that, copy this. Paste it on in. Let's resize it to a decent scale. And this is something I like. So what I'm going to do now is quickly take down its intensity. More of a neutral color. And in fact, more of a tone that'll match this piece because I want to blend this metal in with this decal. But I'm going to quickly bring it above my border layer and just paint out some of these holes that I don't really want. It doesn't have to be clean or fancy because you're not going to see this entire image by itself. You're just going to be seeing snippets of it, but I want a clean piece of metal so I can kind of quickly map it to all my pieces of metal. And there we go. So let's bring this back under again. And this piece here, we're never going to see. It's inside, so I'm not really going to worry about that. What I'm going to do now is I hit M for the marquee tool. And I'm going to do Control Alt. I've been doing it earlier, but I just want to explain what I'm doing so you can follow along. I'm hitting Control Alt, and it's going to bring up those double arrows. And if you just drag, it creates a new duplicate layer, which is a nice, quick, handy tool to duplicate layers. And Control T to transform. And I'm just going to put this behind the decal. I'm going to hide that for a second. And then I want to paint out. Actually, what I'm going to do now is, this is probably going to be better. I'm going to create a layer mask and invert it. And so I'm just going to reveal some of this metal on top. Just try to get a nice organic blend. A nice, quick, easy way to fill in the blanks when you have a nice piece of metal or a nice piece of wood or concrete. It can be very powerful in just filling in some nice detailed blanks without much effort. So there you have it. Now I want to kind of balance this a bit better, even though it's not a big deal. Of course, you're not going to see this, but for my own liking. There. So there's the back of that metal. We have this piece of metal here. And I'm just going to quickly just bring it on over to all the other existing pieces of metal. Not being too picky about it. Just want to cover it up. And then now I have all these pieces of metal with jumbled mess. What I'd like to do is preserve these original textures in terms of what I was talking about, non-destructive workflow. So what I want to do now is quickly go to my borders and select the borders that I want for all the pieces. And then go to my selection. I want to expand it 10 pixels so it's not at the very edge, so we have some room to breathe. And just hit the masking tool. And now I have this clean mask for what I want for all this metal. I just realized I missed this piece, so I'm going to quickly add that in. Select that. expand and just fill it in. So now it's in my layer mask, the revealed areas, and just paint it in. There. So now let's save this bad boy out. And reload. So now we have some pretty decent metal on the back of this. But again, we're never going to see it, so it's not a big deal for us. And now we've fully completed the color map for the front of this clock. During the break, I also went ahead and completed the color maps for all these gray pieces, which are essentially just metal. And because they're all flat edged and most of these bits and pieces are so small, you're not going to see too much information in those. What I did was I took some of my scans and just in Photoshop, I didn't even project them. In Photoshop, I just plopped them into the UVs and then painted out seams in Photoshop, because all these seams here are going to be behind this model, so we're never going to see real seams. So this was really easy. I just took this existing piece of metal here, this big bordered piece, and just duplicated it and brought it on over here and brought it down here just to quickly get some nice coverage. And what it does is you get some nice detailing in here. That this is the back side, so we're not going to see that seam there. But you get some really nice detailing really quickly. And that's the name of the game, is to get, you know, the detail that you want as quickly as you can, but being able to achieve a really good look. And that's why I really like using photographs for my color maps, because it gets me 90% of the way there in half the time. Because if I were to try to hand paint this metal, this would take a very long time to do, and it would be very difficult to achieve this level of complexity. So for me, I like to rely on photos. However, as I go into the bump and displacement maps and spec maps, I'm going to talk a bit more about being careful and not becoming a slave to your photographs. You have to really know how to handle your photographs and how to manipulate them in order to get the overall achieved look that you want. I think in the very beginning, when you're using photographs, it's very easy to just take the photograph, put it in, and hit render. But 10 times out of 10, it's not going to look the way it should. And you have to be wary of that. And you have to understand that, you know, photographs are there for your purpose and not the other way around. And the sooner you can get a grasp on taking photographs and manipulating them the way you need to in order to get the maps that you want, the sooner you're going to become a very, very decent texture painter. So here's my color map for this piece. Very, very simple. Just a bunch of metal and this nice decal that I scanned out with some really nice information in there. So I'm going to apply that to my model here. Taking a second. There we go. So nice clean model with all the nice detail that we had from the photographs. So we are completed on the color maps. And in the next chapter, I'm going to start diving into painting the bump maps, displacement maps, spec, and reflection, which are essentially the same thing, but I do want to touch upon the differences, and we'll take it from there.